The Roman Republic was the most disciplined, brutal, and efficient war machine the world had ever seen. Its legions had crushed kings, leveled cities, and enslaved millions. But in the year 73 BC, the heart of the empire trembled, not because of a foreign invasion, but because of one man who refused to die in the dirt for the entertainment of his masters. His name was Spartacus.
He wasn't just a rebel, he was a nightmare that walked the halls of the Roman Senate. He transformed a small group of desperate men with kitchen knives into an army of over 100,000 soldiers that defeated the finest legions Rome could muster. This is the story of a man whose name became a synonym for freedom and whose body was never found.
To understand the legend, we must first look at the man before the shackles. History is written by the victors, and the Romans were the only ones who wrote about Spartacus. This means much of his early life remains a mystery, shrouded in the fog of ancient propaganda. We know he was a Thracian, hailing from the wild mountainous regions of what is now modern-day Bulgaria. The Romans described the Thracians as a fierce, warlike people, and Spartacus was no exception. Some ancient sources suggest he actually served in the Roman auxiliary forces. If this is true, it explains how he gained his intimate knowledge of Roman military tactics, knowledge that would later allow him to dismantle their formations with surgical precision. Whether he deserted the army or was captured during a raid, his fate ended in the most humiliating way possible for a warrior. He was sold into slavery. But Spartacus wasn't sent to the mines or the fields. Because of his size, strength, and obvious skill in combat, he was purchased by a man named Lentulus Badiatus, the owner of a gladiator training school, or ludus, in the city of Capua.
Life in a ludus was a living death. Men were stripped of their names, their families, and their humanity. They were trained like animals to kill each other for the amusement of the Roman elite. They were fed gladiator mush, a high-carb diet of barley and beans to put on a layer of fat that would protect their vital organs from superficial cuts, ensuring the crowd saw plenty of blood before the final blow was dealt. Spartacus saw the horror of this existence and decided he would rather die fighting for his life than die as a puppet for a cheering mob. In the summer of 73 BC, Spartacus and about 70 other gladiators staged a daring breakout. They didn't have swords or armor yet. They fought their way out of the ludus using cleavers and spits stolen from the kitchen. They fought with the desperation of men who knew they were already dead. Once they reached the streets of Capua, they happened upon a transport of gladiator weapons. They seized them, threw away their shameful arena gear, and fled toward the slopes of Mount Vesuvius. At first, the Roman Senate wasn't worried. They viewed this not as a war, but as a police action. To them, these weren't soldiers, they were runaway property. They sent a small force under the command of Gaius Claudius Glaber to deal with the disturbance. Glaber didn't even bother to attack. He simply blocked the only known path down the mountain, intending to starve the rebels out. He was wrong. Spartacus utilized the terrain in a way the Romans never anticipated. He and his men wove long, sturdy ladders out of the wild vines growing on the mountain. In the dead of night, they rappelled down the sheer cliffs on the other side of the mountain, a path the Romans thought was impassable. They circled around the Roman camp and struck from the rear. It was a slaughter. This was the spark that ignited the Third Servile War. Every day, more slaves arrived at Spartacus's camp. They weren't just fighters, they were shepherds, farmhands, and women. Spartacus faced an impossible task, turning this disparate, multilingual group of oppressed people into a cohesive army. He shared everything equally. When they captured gold and silver, it was divided among the ranks. He banned his men from buying gold or silver, insisting instead that they spend their resources on iron and bronze for weapons. The Romans sent another force under Publius Varinius. Again, they underestimated their opponent. Spartacus used guerrilla tactics, night raids, and decoys. At one point, he propped up dead bodies with sticks and shields to make his camp look guarded, while his army slipped away in the dark.
he defeated Verinius's legions one by one, even capturing the Roman commander's horse and lictors, the symbolic bodyguards of a Roman magistrate. This was more than a defeat. It was a profound insult to the dignity of Rome.
By 72 BC, the rebel army had swollen to nearly 120,000 people. But with growth came internal friction. Spartacus understood that they could never truly defeat Rome on its own soil. His goal seems to have been to lead his people north across the Alps and back to their homelands in Thrace and Gaul. However, his second-in-command, a Gaul named Crixus, had other ideas.
Crixus and a large faction of the rebels wanted to stay and plunder the rich Italian countryside. They wanted revenge. This division proved fatal. Crixus and 30,000 men split from Spartacus and were eventually cornered and wiped out by a Roman consular army.
When Spartacus heard of Crixus's death, he performed a gesture that struck fear into the hearts of the Roman people. He forced 300 Roman prisoners of war to fight to the death as gladiators in a funeral game for Crixus. He turned the Roman sport back on its creators, signaling that the slaves were now the masters of the arena.
Spartacus then marched his army north toward the Alps. He defeated 2 more Roman consuls in pitched battles. The path to freedom was open. The mountains were in sight. They could have left Italy and disappeared into the wilderness of Europe. But then, in one of history's greatest mysteries, Spartacus turned back.
Why? Some historians suggest his followers, flush with victory and loot, refused to leave the riches of Italy. Others believe Spartacus felt he had to finish what he started and crush Rome once and for all. Whatever the reason, the decision changed the course of history.
While Spartacus marched south again, the Roman Senate finally realized they were facing an existential threat. They turned to the richest man in Rome, Marcus Licinius Crassus. Crassus was a man of cold calculation and immense ego. He took command of 8 legions, over 40,000 disciplined soldiers, and he ruled them through terror. To ensure they wouldn't flee like the previous armies, he reinstated the ancient punishment of decimation. If a unit fled in battle, Crassus would have the men draw lots, and 1 out of every 10 would be beaten to death by his own comrades. The message was clear. It was more dangerous to retreat from Crassus than it was to fight the rebels.
Crassus cornered Spartacus in the toe of Italy, at the Strait of Messina. Spartacus tried to strike a deal with Cilician pirates to ferry his army to Sicily, where he hoped to spark a new slave revolt. But the pirates took his money and sailed away, betraying him.
Crassus then constructed a massive fortification, a wall and a trench stretching 37 miles across the peninsula, effectively bottling the rebels in. But Spartacus was not done yet. During a blinding snowstorm, he and his men filled a section of the trench with dirt and tree branches and stormed over the wall, breaking the siege. But the rebel army was exhausted, hungry, and fractured. A group of rebels broke away again and was promptly slaughtered by Crassus. The final showdown took place in 71 BC at the river Salarius. Spartacus knew this was the end. Before the battle, legend says he brought his horse before his men and killed it.
He told them that if they won, he would have many fine horses to choose from, and if they lost, he wouldn't need one. He wanted his men to know there was no escape. The battle was a chaotic, bloody massacre.
Spartacus fought with the fury of a man possessed, trying to cut his way through the Roman ranks to reach Crassus himself. He was wounded by a spear in the thigh, but continued to fight on his knees, shielding himself until he was overwhelmed. When the dust settled, the rebel army was destroyed.
But here is where the mystery deepens. The body of Spartacus was never found. He vanished into the carnage of the battlefield. Crassus, denied the glory of capturing Spartacus alive, took a horrific revenge.
He took 6,000 survivors of the rebel army and crucified them along the Appian Way, the road leading from Capua to Rome. For miles, the bodies of those who dared to dream of freedom hung as a warning to any other slave who might consider rebellion. It was a display of cruelty that the world would never forget.
Spartacus lost the war, but in the long run, he may have won the battle for history. While Crassus and his contemporary, Pompey the Great, fought for political power and titles, Spartacus became a symbol. In the centuries that followed, he was resurrected as a hero for the oppressed. To the revolutionaries of the 18th and 19th centuries, he was a precursor to their own struggles for liberty. Karl Marx called him the most splendid fellow in the whole of ancient history. His story was not one of a simple bandit, but of a man who looked at the most powerful empire on earth and said no.
He showed that even those society deems the lowest, the property, the talking tools, possess a dignity that no chain can break. He forced Rome to look into a mirror and see its own brutality. We don't know what his final thoughts were as he stood on that battlefield, but we do know that over 2,000 years later, we are still talking about the Thracian gladiator who made the masters of the world tremble in their togas.